Hello, my name is Virginia Walter. Today we're going to talk to you about Equifax and about the breach that happened in 2017 with Equifax. Equifax reports credit scores to consumer. They are a data acquisition company. They collect consumer data. This includes personal and financial information that's relevant to a credit score. They analyze data and they sell it to various companies and lenders. And doing this, they accrue more than $3 billion a year. They also employ more than 10,000 people worldwide. During the Equifax breach, the Equifax discovered on July 29, 2017, that a large data breach occurred in its system. It was exposed by a web application vulnerability, which we will talk more about. The breach occurred mid-May through July, and it wasn't discovered until July 29th. It's currently the fourth largest data breach ever discovered in data history. Equifax did not disclose the breach until September, and that time few security measures had been taken to avoid similar incidents in the future. Because they're seen as a data collection giant, this breach of trust is considered unacceptable by many in the web security community, and it's also been considered unacceptable by the people who have been affected by it. As of May 2018, an estimated 148 million customers have been affected by this data breach. The data stolen included names, social security numbers, birth dates, addresses, driver's license, and phone numbers, and over 200,000 credit card numbers. If you're affected by this breach, there are 3 recommendations that can help you avoid identity theft. First, freeze your credit. That will help lenders not be able to access your credit information. Second, consider a credit lock. That's a greater measure that you can take, but it will also lock your credit so that no credit can be issued. Lastly, and the easiest but most important one is to turn on 2-factor authentication with all of your important accounts, including your email and any financial account. I'm going to turn the time over to Hector so he can talk about the vulnerability.
Hi, my name is Hector Ovalle, and like Virginia said, I'm going to talk to you guys about the vulnerability and the attack vector. So the attack vector, which we all know, is just a path or a mean that the attacker can gain access to a computer or network. So when the Equifax breach happened, Equifax was using a tool called Apache Struts. And Apache Struts is just a free open source web framework that is used to create modern Java web applications. And Equifax was using this tool for their dispute portal, where customers log issues with their credit reports. And in March 2017, the National Vulnerability Database released the vulnerability under the number the CVE 2017-5638, which describes the security flaw in Apache Struts Jakarta multi-part parse file upload. Which this means is that when a customer would go in and log an issue with their credit report, they will upload a file if they wanted to. So there was a security flaw there, and that's how the breach happened. The vulnerability. So the attackers with this vulnerability can exploit it by using a remote code execution on the affected system. So this means an attacker can remotely execute any command and to a degree control the website. In the U.S. Department of Homeland Security had a team which is called the Computer Emergency Readiness Team that sent a notice to multiple companies, including Equifax, to patch this vulnerability. So although Equifax security team was aware of this vulnerability, they did not patch it until a few months later. To this point, there are no official statements from Equifax how attackers got into their systems. However, security firms stated to be relatively easy to access their networks once they exploit the vulnerability. So here we have the timeline of the data breach. As you can tell on the bottom, there is the vulnerability found was in early March. And then there was a patch released by Apache Struts. And then the U.S. Department of Homeland Security sent out notice to everyone to patch their systems. And then Equifax did not do anything until they detected the breach, which was in July 29th, but the attackers was already breached it back in May.
Well, my name is Salvatore. I will talk about how to prevent the Equifax breach and give some technical recommendations to avoid the same in our company. There are 3 aspects we have to consider before we answer this question. Was the breach preventable? The first one is that it was just a matter of an upgrade in the version of the Apache struts to make the server secure against the hackers. The second aspect is that there was users with more privilege than they needed. It was just a matter of keeping the user's database up to date. And the third aspect is that there was no firewall or intrusion prevention system installed on the network. Without this equipment, it is very hard to stop some bad guy to get access to the servers. So if Equifax had these three things in place, they could have prevented the attack. Now, I will go through the recommendations to our technical team in order to prevent our company to be attacked by the same profile Equifax was. The first recommendation is to have a web application firewall together with some IPS and IDS in the network. The web application firewall will monitor, filters, and blocks the packets as they travel to and from the web server. And the IDS together with the IPS will prevent and monitors the network and prevents malicious activity or policy violations. The second recommendation is to audit the user's database often and keep the users with the less possible privileges in the systems. And the last recommendation, the third one, is to have a policy. This policy is to maintain and or keep the systems always in the most recent release of patches.
Hi, this is April, and as this table shows, the assets compromised are extensive. There has been a variety of information that was stolen, so many vital pieces of information that can be used to obtain loans, credit cards, and further create obstacles for those whom the information actually belongs to. There have been many already impacted by the breach. The threat actors. There are no known threat actors that have been identified at this time. Bloomberg Businessweek stated the Equifax hack has the hallmarks of state-sponsored pros. The techniques that were used have been linked to past nation-state hackers. This has been a very costly breach for Equifax. As of close of 2017, it was expended $163.1 million. At the close of 2018, it's projected to be $439 million, with $125 million being covered by an insurance policy. It's affected their business interests as well. As a 3-month period ending March 31st, 2017, the net profit was $153.3 million. Same period in 2018, it's $90.9 million, with the primary cause of the difference being the costs related to the cybersecurity incidents. Equifax stocks have lost substantially. There's other costs that have been costed out for this. Analysis predict that the final bill could be more than $600 million, this being the most expensive breach in history to date. So Equifax is most notably known as a resource for credit monitoring and resource for obtaining credit reports. It's much more involved in the business of collecting financial and personal information about consumers. This information is mostly obtained at no cost, and this has grown to be one of the largest repository of Americans' most sensitive financial data. The vulnerability was made aware to the company 2 months prior in March. It was with their popular backend software, the Apache Struts. The vulnerability was found and a fix created, but it was never implemented. The attackers had more than 30 entry points into the computer systems of Equifax. They had to actually take a portal offline so that security team could close the back doors the intruders had created. Due to the time delay of finding the breach, the attackers were able to customize their tools, and so much data was collected that it had to be taken out in pieces to avoid tripping any security measures. The Equifax breach will be in the thoughts of millions for years, as it holds very sensitive data information about their identities. It could cause harm and issues for them in years to come. They need to constantly monitor it. As 44% of the US population was affected, this will be for an indefinite period of time. Companies such as Equifax, they need to be much more responsible with the information that is kept by them as the magnitude that they hold in their possession. They need to be proactive in their security measures, always updating them, and their business depends on it. And so many negative implications stem from it, breaches, and so many lives can be adversely affected. And thank you so much.